This is the Fifth Estate Winning Headlines, your media police post. In this segment, we summarize some of the headlines that you might have missed this morning, and we take a look at the political pieces we call cartoons in this country. Today is the 20th of May, 2020, and I am DM.
I'm Tom.
And I am JM. In case you missed the headlines this morning, here they are. In the Daily Nation, the ultimate betrayal. In the Standard, Raila not signing Uhuru power deal. And in the Star, Raila sweet revenge. So let's begin with the Daily Nation.
Yes.
In an interview with the Daily Nation, Kipchumba Murkomen, we are told, who was recently removed from the office of the majority leader in the Senate, says his ouster had everything to do with the succession war that's gone awry between the president and the deputy president. He also accuses the president of using COVID-19 times to do the political purges, which is immoral. This is what he's claiming. And he says that if we were in non-COVID times, it would not have been so easy to uproot them from their positions. But finally, he also admits that maybe an impeachment is underway or is en route. He's finally admitted
of the deputy president.
Jeff, you know, he's not wrong. Yes, they waited for COVID to do it, and for good reason. But you see, this is not betrayal as such, because I would think that if William RUTO was quiet from 2017 until now and remained low, stayed low, maintained a low profile, he would not be facing the kind of aggression that he's facing. And he got a warning. Remember the time the president said, "Huyu kijana RUTO yeye anapenda kutangatanga kila weekend." It was actually a warning to him. Boss, please stay back. I will make you president. But the moment you keep going into Ishaweri, going into Kiambu, and I mean during the weekends, going to churches, you are sort of getting into my territory. You're in my patch. You're on my patch, and therefore you're probably.
I think Murkomen is not being honest. About why he was let go from his job, and he knows why in his heart. The reason is because he was not fulfilling his job description. And according to the constitution, his job description is to spearhead the political agenda of
the government,
the party. And who is the party leader?
It's
the president. So if he was working at cross purposes with the president, then he was not fulfilling his job description, and that is why he was let go.
Worth of note is also how this is the gods are conspiring against the deputy president. It would appear everything that could go wrong is going wrong on three accounts in particular. First, he's becoming increasingly isolated. He finds himself isolated from the political notables who are leaning now with President Kenyatta. Number two, his sins are coming back to haunt him, and they will be used against him for the impeachment. And the third, as Murkomen is saying, unfortunately, they find themselves in a time where we have restricted movement, so you can't mobilize people, you can't come out on the streets and have tear gas Mondays. It's just not possible. You have to take it lying down. Unfortunate, but it is what it is in the world of politics. We have a three-part criteria that we use to judge the headlines. Are they topical or speculative, repetitive or groundbreaking, and finally thoughtful or just plain lazy? I think this is a repetitive headline. So I think we toss it. And we move on to the Standard.
The Standard is telling us that it has established that Raila will not enter a coalition government or a coalition agreement with Jubilee to form a government of national unity. But instead, they will make a collaborative agreement with the ruling party, which in particular involves working together in parliament. And they've given two reasons why Raila does not want to enjoin his party with Jubilee. The first one is that they're in a legal dilemma. ODM is a constituent party of the NASA coalition. And if it gets into a new pact with Jubilee, then it has to sever ties with the alliance. The second reason is that if ODM enters into a coalition pact with Jubilee, it will effectively join the majority party, and that means that it will lose its position as the minority party, which means that it will lose the leadership positions positions that they hold in the houses.
Indeed.
James Orengo in the Senate, John Badi in the National Assembly, and so forth. I think the first is not a reason but an excuse. I mean, who cares if you're leaving NASA? It's like saying we don't want to leave Quad or the Rainbow Alliance. Those outfits served their purpose, so it doesn't matter now. But the second reason is valid. You don't want to lose the leadership positions in the houses. I think Raila is being very clever, and he's doing this. He doesn't want to enjoin himself for self-preservation.
Yes,
we have to applaud the longevity of ODM so far. You know, parties come and go in Kenya. They either come and go or they just fade into oblivion. But I think ODM is the kernel of the future.
Oh yes, it is, and we must give Raila a lot of credit for building that party from the ground up, and for being able to sustain it this far.
You know, Raila is a legend. He's learned that the handshake is enough. The non-contractual is far more superior right now to the contractual. If you're going to have an agreement, a coalition agreement with Jubilee right now, he doesn't know whether he will suffer the same consequences RUTO is suffering.
So and note that he has said that they will support the agenda of Jubilee in Parliament, so it will serve the purpose.
Clever guy.
Okay. Maybe we park that headline as we consider the star.
Yes.
Raila's sweet revenge.
Raila sweet revenge, and they're saying, now who has gotten revenge, sweet revenge? It is Raila Odinga, and that's because William Ruto used to really mock Raila Odinga back in 2013 and say sasa ule mtu ako sasa kwa mstuni, sasa yeye alikuwa analeta nyoko. But now who is actually now in government? Who's in government? It is Raila Odinga. And maybe the lesson here is, and it is to William Ruto, you should really never have taken this Raila man and say he's been discarded politically forever. The man has 9 lives, and at some point he always finds a way to come back.
But too, they're talking as if Raila also was not throwing jabs at Ruto and calling him Tumbili. It's politics. It's two ways.
Tumbili.
It's a game. I think we perhaps award the winning headline to the star.
I agree.
Agreed.
It's short, it's punchy, it's sweet.
And you want it?
Great. So there we go. A star winning headline. Tuem, if you could toss the standard.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes. And so on to the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. We also have a 3-part criteria that we use to break down the cartoons. We ask ourselves, are they humorous or dry, satirical or pessimistic, and finally, effective or just plain lazy? So we begin with the Daily Nation.
Yes. And there you have...
Very humorous cartoon here. Let me describe this.
Okay, sure.
This is a Zoom meeting of the Tanga Tanga team.
Yeah.
The deputy president is hosting a virtual Zoom meeting with his besieged allies, who, quite frankly, in my view, look like his servants, wearing the characteristic yellow uniform. Yeah. You see there? Yeah. Duale's ears are spilling over into the screens of Kalwale and another legislator who appears to be Samson Cherargei. Yeah. Very well done there. The DP is sitting on a hot jiko, and behind him is his Twitter bird, Dennis Itumbi, looking on, perhaps waiting for orders on what to tweet. And the caption says, "It's getting hot. I will go mute and unmute all of you." And
note that everybody in the Zoom meeting is wearing yellow for URP.
Absolutely.
Very humorous rendition here.
Itumbi looks exactly like Itumbi.
He does, I tell you. This is Ndula.
Yeah.
Is this Ndula?
Yeah. It is Ndula, and I guess he's commenting on the fact that the deputy president has gone very quiet, but his proxies are speaking on his behalf, and he's saying that that's why he's saying, I'll unmute all of you to do the verbal war.
Absolutely. We park that
for him.
Yeah.
In the Standard, we have a very gangster scene with William Ruto. We can actually only identify him from the nose and the hat, because everything else, he looks very different. He's very buff. Yeah. And he's sitting in a tattoo removal shop where, with his back to the tattoo artist who is about to remove his tattoo, Tuko Pamoja, with the Jubilee sign. Yeah. And he's saying, peel it off if you must. Yeah. And the mouse at the corner is saying, it's more painful to remove one than to have one, which is true in everything in life. It's nice to have a wedding, but terrible to have a divorce. Yeah. So this is a commentary on, I suppose, suggesting that RUTO was a member of a gang which is Jubilee, and he's either now quitting or being ejected from it, and so he doesn't want to. Now he's removing the declaration of love that he had plastered on his back.
You know, a lot of people had doubted whether it was a good idea for him to merge URP with TNA to form Jubilee. And now it appears that it may not have been a good idea.
Actually, that's a very good analysis of the cartoon, because the permanence of a tattoo is the permanence of enjoining your party legally.
Precisely.
Fantastic read of it. Now, what the star? We move to the star.
Yes.
The star, you have it's a drawing of the coalition outfitters and caricature of Uhuru Kenyatta himself. He's the one cutting the fabric. Behind him is Gideon Moi, and he has a tape measure and is measuring the size of his fabric. His fabric is red. You have Raila Odinga measuring the fabric of the trouser. And then you have Kalonzo Musyoka there with a kinyasa that is blue. And you have Mudavadi in the background, also just checking it out. And William Ruto is outside the shop. Trying to peep in.
I think it's Raila who is actually doing the cutting. He wants to chop off.
Those are scissors, yeah?
Those are scissors, absolutely. And then it's Gideon Moi who is measuring.
But you see...
And Kalonzo wants to be included with his little shorts.
Yeah, but who is cutting the fabric? The person with the fabric and sewing the fabric there is Uhuru Kenyatta.
Sewing it together. He's
doing
the patchwork.
He's doing the patchwork.
He's the one bringing the different pieces of fabric.
He's deciding who will wear what the size of the fabric will be. You know, and the person who would have done it with him is right outside the shop, and that is William Ruto.
I think we could even have a biblical interpretation to this cartoon.
Yeah.
This is like Joseph and his Technicolor dream coat, because it was a patchwork of different fabric, and what did it do? It made his 11 brothers jealous.
Absolutely. Wonderful. I think I love all the cartoons.
The cartoons are wonderful.
They're all wonderful today.
Yeah. Should we award them all?
I think
all of them.
It's a joint winner.
All of them.
Yeah.
Brilliant. And so, what is our final thought?
And now, our final thought. It is inspired by a book entitled I Speak of Freedom, a Statement of African Ideology by Kwame Nkrumah.
Indeed, it is. So this week, we've been looking at great speeches that shaped our history. So this book is a crystallization of Kwame Nkrumah's ideology, and it is part of what he had included in speeches even before he wrote this book, dating back to 1953. So he wrote this book in 1961, and it also forms the basis of the speeches, the great speeches that he made all over Africa and around the world going forward from then. So Kwame Nkrumah is a hero of independence, not just in his country, Ghana, but all over the African continent. He actually inspired a lot of liberation leaders around the world, including our own here in Kenya, around Africa. So Kwame Nkrumah was the leader of the first black African country to gain independence. On the 5th of March, 1957, Ghana freed itself from the chains of colonial rule. And it is on his day that he made another of his famous speeches, and he said, "We are going to see that we create our own African personality and identity. We again rededicate ourselves in the struggle to emancipate other countries in Africa, for our independence is meaningless unless it is linked up with the total liberation of the African continent." So you can see that from the very onset, Kwame Nkrumah was very continental in his thinking. He wasn't looking inwardly just to Ghana alone, but to the rest of Africa, and to the rest of Africa being free. And that is his ideology. In fact, it was his mantra in his liberation discourse, saying that Africa cannot truly be free if it's only parts of Africa and not the whole of Africa that is free. But the other thing that he was saying is that in order to attain real freedom and real independence, Africa has to consolidate, has to form he called it a union government of Africa. So what he was saying is that it is not enough for Africa to come together as a loose economic confederation, but it must actually come together politically to form one solid political Africa.
Nkrumah had great aspirations, as you have mentioned, DM, creating a union government of Africa, but very poor logic. And I will demonstrate that in this statement. He was quite a lofty and idealistic thinker. And he wanted to unify us, but I think for all the wrong reasons. Listen to this statement that he gives in I Speak of Freedom. And he says, the greatest contribution that Africa can make to the peace of the world is to avoid all the dangers inherent in disunity by creating a political union which will also, by its success, stand as an example to a divided world. A union of African states will project more effectively the African personality. It will command respect from a world that has regard only for size and influence. So in essence, let me just break that down. He says we should unite for the following reasons. A, to contribute to world peace. B, to become a good example to stability in a divided world. C, to project an African personality to the world. And D, to command respect from the world.
I like the last reason.
Yes. Okay, yeah. But you can see, you know, these are all really lofty ideas. This is not how countries and peoples and communities form a united nation. And historically, what we see is that the unification of states is a gradual and organic process. It's driven by interests. When people and nations which are at a common stage of economic development with common aspirations and common values come together, decide to form, merge their institutions, their laws, and so on and so forth. And usually political unions are preceded by economic unions.
Oh yes.
So he was already jumping to the political union without first addressing the economic union.
No, JM,
so completely flawed thinking in terms of how we get there and why it is that we are uniting Africa. Surely it cannot be just, you know, for us to show the world that, look, you guys are in war, us guys are peaceful. I mean,
he's being very apologetic.
I think so. And you see, I think the original sin here is the original sin was in the 1960s, the era of the 1960s. African countries, when they gained independence during this era, they never asked themselves why. Why are we gaining independence, right? Why are we, you see, the state largely, the colonial state was largely extractional and extractionist, and that was done to be able to get resources from Africa and deliver them to other empires so that they could actually prosper economically. Now, we didn't ask ourselves, why do we need this independence as Africans? But before I go there, let me just read a little bit of an excerpt that he wrote in this book. He says, critics of African unity often refer to the wide differences in culture, language, and ideas in the various parts of Africa. I agree. Then he says the difficulties presented by questions of language, culture, and different political systems are not inseparable. If the need for political union is agreed by us all, then the will to create it is born. And where there's a will, there's a way. There I agree. And then he comes and says, to suggest that the time is not yet ripe for considering a political union of Africa is to evade the facts and ignore the realities in Africa today. Now I disagree. Why? Because there's a small component called economic independence. Now, by the time the African Union was being created and the headquarters was in Addis, the Chinese gave us a headquarters in Addis Ababa in Ethiopia, and it was worth $200 million. Now, fast forward to now, do you know who are the largest donors to the African Union? It is the Europeans. 72% of the African Union budget is actually funded by Europeans. Africa just does at about 28%. And then 35% of African countries do not actually contribute the yearly subscriptions to the African Union. And yet, we always want to claim independence. You cannot be independent. I think some of our forefathers should have actually taken the framework of a man called Booker T. Washington, an American civil rights intellectual. And he said that before you agitate for political power, you first have to create a black economic base. right? That without self-help, without racial solidarity, without accommodation, there's absolutely no way you can share a table and negotiate for political power with a white man. And you know why? Because there is lack of material prosperity. That which someone sees you to have, and then you come to the table and argue your case. If you do not have that, the tools of power, the symbols of power, the wealth, and you look good in wealth, then your argument will cease to exist. And therefore, wealth accumulation must have been or should have been the precursor to political power. But right now, we'll forever be beggars in the world stage.
That's a good sermon to him, but I disagree with you and Booker T. Washington.
Why?
I don't think that you should peg everything on your material conditions. You'll still be seen as just a rich monkey. When it comes to, and I think we're being harsh on Kwame Nkrumah's rhetoric, because when it comes to discourse about liberation, it cannot be one-dimensional. We cannot think in a linear way. We should have hybrid approaches, because the subjugation that we were facing then and still facing now are not just economic, they're also political. They're also about dignity, in addition to being economic. So the approach should be multi-pronged. That is why in Kenya we had the Jomo Kenyattas and the tomboyers who go to the negotiation table in Lancaster, but we have the Mau Mau fighting in the forest. We have the ones who would be apologetic and discuss, but then we have the one who will be by baptism, by fire, we will take this thing. So you fight for the dignity part, you fight for the economy part, you fight for political inclusion. I think Kwame Nkrumah was a visionary, and I agree with his logic and his observations. But yes, I also agree that the economic part of the struggle should not be in the back burner. It should be simultaneous, and that doesn't cancel out Kwame Nkrumah's arguments.
DM, I totally agree. You see, my point is, if you leave economic independence away from the argument of African collaboration, for example, then that which you want to have, the word independence,
not collaboration, but negotiation.
The word independence in itself must have the economic factor in it. You see, by the time you're agitating, we want political freedom, we want to be African, we want to be Pan-Africans, fantastic, well and good. But if just 60 of all the trade that Africa does, it only contributes to 16% it does with the global world, then we have a problem. We have a problem.
Agreed.
We have a problem, and we have a problem because we don't realize that the strength which we want to achieve actually exists within ourselves.
Yeah, I agreed, but I'm also saying simultaneous to that, we need to have the political conversation. And counter to Booker T. Washington, we talked about him. There was also W.E. Du Bois, who was talking about the political emancipation and ideology. We had the Malcolm X's and the Black Panthers who were not apologetic about taking things by force. But you also had the Martin Luther King Jr., who was saying that we need to have civil rights. We need to go and vote. So you can't say we won't vote, we won't have civil rights, we won't have a political awakening. We just want to be rich and wear good clothes and have good cars so that white people can accept us.
That's not my point. Is very simple. For you to be able to agitate for political power, some level of economic wealth must be attained.
Agreed.
It has to be attained.
Agreed.
For you to be able to come to the table with these people you call the white colonialists, they have to see you as capable enough of raising financial capital.
Indeed.
That's the only way you can attain political power.
But how can you do economic arrangements without politics? Because politics is about what?
It just
the
depends.
Decision about resources.
I remember you coming up with a substructure and superstructure.
Order in the studio. We could continue discussing this, endlessly. But we've got to bring the show to a close. So on a day that we had a winning headline from the Star and the winning cartoons from all the dailies, I will ask that you don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're also on your TV screens. Find us on Pang Free to Air, Go TV, and Star Times.